She can't see me now then?
Nope. Everybody on YouTube can see you, or rather hear us. But coming up in just a minute, folks, in 1 minute. I suppose I should have a bit of pre-show music for this little bit. Oh, look at that. Here we go. I think we're there. Right.
I got a thing up there that said YouTube stopped due to a long-running script. So I said stop script. But it's not come on. Oh, that bloody thing.
No, yeah. I tell you. It's a bit like trying to get Brexit, getting all the tech working.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I suppose we should kind of start really. Guess who is rusty? Me. Just don't know if we're. Just want to see if we're going out on wakeupuk.com as well. If you're waiting on YouTube. Because we're streaming youtube.com/Daily Brexit and on wakeupuk.net every Wednesday night, 9 o'clock. And and I am rusty, which is why I'm wondering if we're streaming. So I just want to, we are. Okay, good. Let's get on with it. Let's get on with it. Hey folks, good evening, good people, and welcome to the Daily Chaos, or to add KO, that kind of a world. Chaos, the show isn't daily, but the chaos is. Can you hear that music behind us, Stephen?
I can.
Good. Something's working. General election tomorrow. If you hadn't noticed, maybe if you're stateside or somewhere else around the planet, you hadn't known. Fair play to you. And if you're in the UK, you probably do know. General election tomorrow. So, how to vote? Should we vote? And will voting be enough? I've got UKIP Councillor Stephen Place here with me now to discuss tomorrow's vote. Tactical voting. What can we expect? And Bubba Kate Paris is supposed to be joining me as well tonight to discuss this election or election. And I've no idea where she is, bless her. I hope she's okay. Maybe she is, I don't know, underneath a sea of leaflets, Lib Dem leaflets or something that somebody has poured all over her trying to suffocate Tory canvasser. I think that Kate is now, because she was on the UKIP NEC, and I think that she now is just a Brexit activist as such, like many of us, who is canvassing for the Tories and maybe for the Brexit Party. I'm not sure. Stephen Place, I don't want to get into too many details about UKIP tonight because there's a lot to cover so far as this general election is concerned. But just so that we've got a bit of an idea of what is going on with UKIP, because it has had such a checkered recent history with the NEC, the National Executive Council, with the vote there, and apparently having been overrun by, I don't know, people that don't seem to care about democracy. Stephen, what is your take, please, on what's going on with UKIP now?
I don't think we've got enough time, to be truthful. We are in a bit of a state at the moment, there's no doubt about it. We've got an interim leader called Pat Mountain, who was appointed by the NEC, and to be fair to Pat, she's making a really, really good fist of it. She's doing a good job. We've now got a full team of spokespersons for different policy areas appointed.
You're one of them, no?
Which has been updated and added to by the spokespeople who have expertise in their own area, in their own policy area.
Yeah. Hello?
Hello?
Sorry, I thought you'd gone there. Right. You are one of those, aren't you? You're in charge of...
Home Affairs.
Home Affairs? Yeah. Okay, well, I'm sure you'd be better at that than Diane Abbott, if Labour get in.
I'd like to think so, yeah.
Aye. Ex-cop is
well,
Mr.
exactly,
Place.
and that's the problem, you know, when you look at the British police force, it's on its knees. So I was delighted to be appointed to finally get a say on things that matter. Okay,
right. So basically, UKIP, it seems to be going through the motions still. It's lost a lot of membership.
We're going through some immense changes, Ollie. There's no doubt about it. There was a little bit of a coup, attempted coup, which, without going into too many details, because it gets very fractious. And I don't want to take sides. I'd like to try and remain neutral. And I'm basically for the party. I want the party to succeed. I want the party to come back onto the theatre of politics in this country. But we will only succeed if we unite, and we can only unite through change. And that's all I'll say really on that.
I have to say, it seems to me that we need a balance, a counterbalance, checks and balances in British politics, and that UKIP has been poised to assist with that. Indeed, got us the referendum, one could argue, with Nigel Farage, who's gone on to form the Brexit Party and is now talking about the Reform Party. But the bottom line is that UKIP at the moment is incapacitated through the political internal politics, the wranglings that there have been. How many candidates have been fielded for this general election tomorrow?
I've got some sort of background.
Stephen, you're cutting in and out there. I don't know if that's your microphone.
No, I don't know what I'm picking up.
Could be Cheltenham playing about. Right. Okay. So sorry. How many candidates are you fielding tomorrow?
44.
44.
44 from Brighton through to Sheffield, through to Lee in Wigan.
Tell you.
There you are. I can see you now.
Can you? God bless you. Right. Keep your volume down on YouTube or on wakeupuk.net, whichever one you're looking at this on. Keep the volume down on there, because you and I are talking over Skype so that we don't get a latency issue. So you're fielding 44 candidates. Realistically, are they going to get more than a clutch of votes? Stephen Place. Be lovely to have a chat with Stephen Place, wouldn't it?
Ollie, I'm getting all sorts of background talking.
Are you? Okay. In that case, do me a favour, close the web browser entirely, and let's just have a chat on Skype. No problem. And there will be questions for you, and people may want to call in as well. And I'll give them a number in just a sec to do that, if they want to call in and ask any questions. But I'll read out whatever questions we get on youtube.com/Daily Brexit and at wakeupuk.net. I'll read out the questions so that we can try and make this as interactive as possible. Stephen, so I hope you can hear me. I mean, we know that UKIP has gone through so many problems post Farage, really. You're still there, so presumably you have hope that it nonetheless can still provide a voice for many, many people in the UK who don't have a political voice, one could argue.
Yes. I'm hoping that depending on what happens tomorrow, of course, and how the public vote, my view of it is I go with the polls, because I think Boris will return with something like 28 to 34 majority. I've not got a bet on it, but I've got a sportsman's bet that Corbyn will be gone by Monday. And if you notice, Sir Keir Starmer has been absolutely conspicuous by his absence throughout the whole of the lead up to this general election. I predict that Keir Starmer will be the next leader.
Huh.
Possibly with Rebecca Long Bailey as his running mate.
Really?
That's just my personal view. Yeah.
I guess there's other candidates include Emily Thornberry, who tried to get me arrested when I asked her a question.
Apparently, Emily Thornberry is looking a little bit tricky in terms of getting elected.
Really?
So I've heard. Yeah, the polling's not very good for her.
Did you hear Ashworth? Is it Ashworth? John Ashworth, the Labour Shadow Health Secretary, that conversation?
Yeah, the first point I'd like to make about that, Ollie, if I may, is that I don't like John Ashworth. His politics frighten me to death in terms of the future of the country and what he has to say. But his so-called friend, wow, what a piece of work he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a slight empathy for John Ashworth with regards to his so-called friend. I mean, I don't know if that guy's married or not, but if you were his wife, you'd be struggling to trust him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what. Let me see if I can.
Him under the bus.
Yeah, absolutely remarkable. I'll see if I can find a little bit of that to read to people.
But I mean, John Ashworth can try and spin it the best way he can in terms of banter. That's absolute nonsense. Everybody who's listened to that will know and fully understand where he's coming from. And he's basically saying, I think, what an awful lot of people are thinking, that Corbyn's not fit to lead the country, lead the party. I mean, I personally don't even believe that Corbyn should be in politics full stop because of his views and the way he's sided with bombers and murderers and maimers, and even convicted IRA bombers have come out and said that he was never ever suing for peace. It was all about furthering the cause of the IRA. I think the man's a wretch, if I'm honest.
Who said that, out of interest?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I'm going to have to try and find his name. He was a convicted bomber, and he was interviewed. There's a very famous video of him talking about Corbyn, and he said he never sued for peace. He was never talking about peace.
Okay, yeah, his politics are very concerning. He's certainly, at the very least, an extreme Marxist. And John Ashworth was basically saying that, and saying that on the doorstep. So this is the shadow health minister. The shadow front bench for the Labour Party was saying that on the doorstep, going around the country, trying to prop up some of these candidates, these Labour candidates that are going to be losing their seats, very possibly. And hopefully, frankly, he was hearing on the doorstep from people saying that they did not intend in any way to be voted, particularly in the north, in the Labour heartland, did not intend, although that's Labour these days, isn't it? Did not intend to be voting Labour, but they would be voting Tory even. For the first time in their lives, in many, many cases, because they did not vote Corbyn, this back to the 70s Marxist, frankly, and also they did not like the fact that Labour had lied about their manifesto pledge in 2017 to honour the referendum result. It has to be said, though, that the same could be levelled at the Tories, that final point there. No, Stephen?
Yeah. Well, the Tories, I mean, again, the Tories with an austerity plan. You have to say that, and again, this is my personal viewpoint, that last year on Christmas Day and this year on Christmas Day, this year's worse. It's estimated on Christmas Day this year there'll be 130,000 children waking up in a bed and breakfast or a hostel or a hotel, sharing bathrooms with other families and other adults, and what kind of life are those kids having? And all the people that are sleeping rough on the streets. And where on earth were they going to take this, the Tories? How far were they going to go? I tweeted, and if you look at the police and criminal justice system, I've tweeted Theresa May personally and said to her, how on earth do you sleep at night? You've absolutely wrecked the British police force and the judiciary. How it will ever recover. And Boris Johnson saying we're having 20,000 new police officers. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're having 20,000 that are going to go some way towards replacing the 21,870 that they lost. They've never mentioned the 7,000 PCSOs that they got rid of, 600 police stations they shut down, and then the Crown Prosecution Service, which I think is totally and wholly unfit for purpose. They cut 30% of the budget. So how on earth can we have? I haven't even mentioned the prisons yet. How on earth can we have a functioning judiciary when they've closed down 50% of magistrates' courts? How far were they going to take it, the Tories? It's extreme, actually, what they've done. And,
I suppose that their argument would be that they were left with an economy, a treasury, where the Treasury Minister or Assistant Minister or what have you left a note on the desk for the incoming Conservative government saying there was no money left.
Been in power. When they leave power, and they're kicked out, they always leave the country in a far worse, more perilous state than them when they took over. Unemployment is always higher. They've borrowed and borrowed to the extreme. Then the Tories come in.
You're talking about the Labour Party there.
Comments in her memoirs was, I had to get public spending under control when she came to power. And it's the merry-go-round. It's ridiculous that we've got this two-party system. I'm 58 years of age. All I've ever known is Labour or a Tory government, Ollie. And look at the state of the country.
You did also experience a Tory Lib Dem coalition. And the Lib Dems were also largely responsible for the austerity that we've seen, it has to be said, in fairness. Stephen, so what is the point of people voting, given that what you're saying or suggesting is that we've got a merry-go-round? What I would say, for example, you tell me if I'm wrong, we have a system of duopolistic politics, polar politics, if you like, but basically it's a bit of a Pepsi challenge. It's a little bit different to that now with Corbyn. It was certainly very centrist when we had the Blairites Camerons. But we are, as you say, very likely to be getting back to that next week. Corbyn will be kicked out. We'll have a Hillary Benn or a Keir Starmer. The Tories will come back to the centre as well. And we've got this kind of Pepsi challenge. Pepsi, Coke, doesn't matter. They'll both rot your teeth and give you cancer.
Absolutely.
What is the point of people voting, sir?
And why I think the country's desperate for a centre-right party that talks about common sense and talks about some good ideas about balancing things up between the two. But I think going on tomorrow quite clearly, the embarkation lines are in the sand are laid. If you voted for Brexit and you wanted to leave the EU, you must vote for Tories because they're the only party that are talking anything like taking us out. We can discuss the deal at a later stage, but at the moment, they're the only party that's taking us out, which is what 17.4 million people decreed should happen 3.5 years ago. Now, you could say...
Hold on. Whoa. On that point, before we look at the other side and whether or not you should be voting for the other lot, and we go through the ramifications of different possibilities as well, hung parliament, what have you. But that is not correct, sir, is it? What we have is Prime Minister Boris Johnson is saying that he will get Brexit done, whereas the reality, I don't care what he says, the rhetoric, the fact is what's in that treaty that he has agreed with Brussels that he wants to put in front of the new parliament and get it voted through, that leaves our country under ECJ jurisdiction. In other words, under Brexit, EU control. The EU will control our legal system and therefore essentially the entire country. No? That's not getting Brexit done.
It's nothing like Brexit. He's lying. He's having us on. But, He's the nearest thing to Brexit out of all of them that we're going to get. So the Lib Dems have absolutely shot themselves in the foot completely by saying they
But
would
it's
just
nothing like
cancel it.
Brexit. You could argue it's worse than what we've got at the moment. Because at the moment, at least we can walk if we want to. Well, I mean, if we had a government that did what we told them to do, we could walk.
Brexit,
and we've got a veto. We will have no veto. We're chucking them a load of money. There's going to be this border down the Irish Sea, which is going to stoke potentially violence and certainly ultra-nationalism in Northern Ireland and in Scotland. We're in danger of seeing the breakup of the Union because of the kind of policies that this Prime Minister wants to put through Parliament.
Think of the money, Ollie. From the 31st of August to the 31st of January, that's cost this country £3 billion paying to the EU. Every week, at some point, somewhere, somebody presses the enter button on a computer and transfers £55 million to the EU. Every week. Every day, I mean.
Every day. Yeah.
They did it yesterday, they did it on Monday, and they did it on Sunday and Saturday and Friday last week. They'll do it tomorrow, polling day. They'll do it Friday, when we're all disseminating what's gone on, and they'll do it Saturday and Sunday and Monday next week. £55 million. £3 billion. And then Barnier, who negotiated the deal, so-called deal, he said that there's no way, it's going to take at least 3 years. At least 3 years.
That's right.
To get the trade deal done.
Yes.
We're paying in £1 billion every month for another 3 years. Then on top of all that, we've still to pay £39 billion. This country is...
Which we don't owe, actually. We have no legal obligation whatsoever to pay that. And it's dragged on so long, this whole process, that any moral responsibility we might have had to have paid that, well, we've been paying it anyway, most of it, because we haven't actually left when we should have left 3.5 years ago. Just a quick note that Katie Fanning, a.k.a. Bubba Kate Paris, is on her way. I got a note from her saying that she's on her way, bless her, she's running a bit late. So you, as I understand it, Stephen, are... despite being a UKIP member, campaigning, telling people, suggesting to people that they vote Conservative, despite this?
The problem is, look at the choices that you have. If you don't hold your nose and vote Tory tomorrow, if you abstain and don't vote, or if you spoil your ballot, which is just a stupid waste of time, you're going to get a Corbyn government. Or a hung parliament with Corbyn and Swinson fighting amongst themselves as to who should lead a hung parliament. Can you just, for a second, if you dare for a second, think about the ramifications of that? Diane Abbott will be in charge of the police, immigration, MI5, which she said she wants to shut down anyway. Jeremy Corbyn said he's not very comfortable with the shoot-to-kill policy within the police force. So that means last week, on the Friday, if Corbyn had been in charge, those officers would not have been allowed to shoot that man dead.
They might have been stabbed instead.
To double tap him in the head, and he had, for all they knew, he had a suicide vest on.
That's right. He looked it.
Can you imagine them in charge? I think there'll be a mass exodus in this country of people. So Alan Sugar, who regularly posts a picture of his cheque made out to the HMRC from last May. It was 58 million quid. That's his personal tax. He said he's going and taking his family with him. So that's already, the country's down 58 million. And then all the rest of these so-called billionaires. Can you imagine these guys in charge? So people have to hold their noses and vote for the Tories, or else we're going to get the biggest mess.
Your argument is pragmatism.
Yes, absolutely. Let's be pragmatic about this. Let's start the process. Let's heal the division in terms of leave, because there is the absolute leave. Just walk away. Just damn well walk away, keep our money in the bank. Charity starts at home. Look after the Brits here, first of all. We've got old people who are freezing to death. We've got old people who can't get the care that they need. We've got thousands of people sleeping rough on the streets, including many vets suffering from PTSD. With hundreds of thousands of kids homeless. Come on, charity starts at home. It's about time we started looking after ourselves, first and foremost.
Okay, all right. Look, I'm going to go through.
Do you know what, Ollie? I post every week on Facebook and on Twitter all the investment that's coming into. There is investment pouring into this country every single day. There are new factories opening, new businesses opening, creating new jobs all across the country.
Okay, I'm going to
why are we frightened?
I'm going to open up some questions and see what people have to say about this. I think it's a very. There are some very interesting ramifications, depending on whether we get a hung parliament, a heavy hung parliament in the Tory favour,
God forbid.
And if we have an outright Tory win, there is a possibility. Okay, last question before we go to the comments to you, please, Stephen. If we
Yes.
Are we not better off having a hung parliament, which is, if you like, a strong hung parliament from the point of view of the relative Brexiteers, because they, you could argue, are more Brinoist, this Tory lot. David Cameron, for example, has said that every Tory candidate supports his deal. That's what he said. I want to know if they support a WTO deal, because frankly, his deal is not Brexit. I'm concerned that they want that, and that then Brexit is, obfuscated until it's out of the question. It's just not going to happen. So let me just finish this, Stephen, please.
Ollie,
just bear with me. Just bear with me.
A battle for another day. The immediate battle right now is keeping out a Corbyn Marxist government, which will just ruin this country.
Okay. Fair answer. I hear that. But if we were for a minute to play fantasy politics, what would be the best possible outcome? In your view, would it be that scenario that I've just given, i.e. Boris could take us into direct Brino, or would actually we be better off with a hung parliament, which is healthy from the point in terms of the numbers for Conservative with DUP support, and ideally one or two Brexit Party candidates in the mix, which would hold the government's feet to the fire towards a WTO exit 1 year from now, when, as Barnier has said, caught on a hot mic, there will be no way that they can negotiate a trade agreement in this period of time. And actually, I don't even think it's a year that they've got to negotiate this. I think that they have to negotiate it by June. So they've got a few months.
Well, they have to have the main parts of it in place, I think, by June, because it then goes to council, doesn't it, to ratification and all that kind of business.
So that's not going to happen. Ollie, and so we are facing, are we not, exactly what we faced a month ago in the Parliament, where again they're going to be talking about another extension or a clean break WTO deal with all the ancillary deals to keep the planes flying and the lawyers flowing and all the rest of it, which are in place, all of them. There's no such thing as a no-deal Brexit. That is a lie. There's no such thing as crashing out. A WTO deal Brexit is a soft landing. So just setting all that aside, would we not be better off in terms of fantasy politics, Stephen, if we actually were to have a hung parliament?
Well, I'm not sure only because the SNP, Lib Dems, Plaid Cymru and Labour Party will club together and be quite a strong Remain emphasis and battle hard against the Tories. I'm not sure whether the DUP would actually trust Boris and his government again. Because
what you're basically saying here, Stephen, is that there's no hope for Brexit.
It depends on the man with the blonde hair, doesn't it? If he's true to his word, he will start instigating a deal, and if the deal is not to our satisfaction, I'm hoping he's strong enough and he's going to say, no, we'll walk away under WTO. If not, then we'll fight that battle when it comes. Right now, for me personally, in the next 2 days, this country has got to stave off a Marxist Labour government. We cannot afford that.
Let's take a few comments and see what people have got to say over at wakeupuk.net. Good evening, folks. God bless you. I hope you're looking forward to tomorrow. Not long now. People are just saying hello. You're all lovely, but you're just all saying hello. Look, the number, if you want to call in and ask a question, is 033 000 11264, and I will put that number on YouTube right now. Jason very kindly put it in the comments. That's a UK national rate number. Jason Tyler at Wake Up UK very kindly put it in the comments there. Blimey, hold on a sec. What have I done? I've just opened up the page source code or something on. Right, okay, fine. But we do have questions on YouTube. So here we go. Tanis Pullen says, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm bloody fed up with all the lies. They should be made to stick to their manifesto. We've got somebody that's just called in. I suspect that is Katie Fanning. Katie.
No, this is Elliot from Wake Up UK. How you doing?
Hey, Elliot from Wake Up UK. Yeah, you've got a deeper voice. How are you, sir? What would you like to say or ask, please?
Jason said I should give you a call. This is my first time watching your show, actually. I've got a bit of an echo. I don't know if I can just hear that.
That is probably because you need... I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I am technically pretty useless. But what would you like to say or ask? We'll muddle through.
So I was going to say, I actually voted Labour in the 2017 election. I was a bit more left-wing at the time, but I wanted Brexit to be carried out. I mean, I voted Remain, but, I got behind the result eventually. And I knew it had to be carried out because it's the right thing to do. But Labour at the time had a Brexit policy, and I'm a Southern Labour voter, if you like, and I know that a lot of people in the North, they are just finding it, and in Wales as well, they really can't get behind Jeremy Corbyn, partly because now they just think he's such a toxic character, but also because he's pretty much given in to the Remainers when it comes to Brexit now. So, I mean, I don't think I would have voted for Labour this time round anyway. I really don't like the direction they're going in. But I think this is honestly what caused him to lose this election. More than anything, more than the anti-Semitism stuff, anything like that. I just think he's really just betrayed the Northern Labour voters, if you ask me. I've just sort of started watching a show tonight. I'm not sure what your opinion is on this. What do you think?
Well, I was brought up in Bradford. I live in Bradford, and my father was a lorry driver, and my mum worked in the co-op, and we were a Labour family. Bradford is a Labour town, but so many people feel that the old-fashioned Labour Party that stood up for the work, that looked after working people, has gone. It's very London-centric. They're all very, 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 very wealthy people, and they talk a good talk, but they don't walk a good walk, And then, if you remember 2017, one of the big things that Jeremy said was, and the Labour Party said, was that they were going to cancel tuition fees. Do you remember?
Yes.
And they said also... They also said that if you had tuition fees, they were going to write off that debt. And literally, it was 2 weeks after the election that they lost that Angela Rayner, who is the shadow for education, said, "Oh no, actually, it was an aspiration."
It was in their manifesto as a pledge.
Not just well, these manifestos. This opens up the manifesto conversation. The manifestos are about as much use as a chocolate teacup. Because they're not hold to them in the other way. You can look at Labour Party. They've promised the earth, and they will not be able to fulfil and stick to any of it. The biggest
Tories
thing
too,
is
has to be said.
the renationalisation.
Yeah.
Because under EU rules, whilst ever we're in the EU, we cannot renationalise
I know.
a drop of water, a single piece of rail, or anything. We can't do it. So they're just lying to the public. They're having the public on.
Elliot,
I'm not even against nationalising certain
No, I'm
sectors
not.
of the industry.
I'm not. I think there's certain things that have. I mean, I travel on the railway quite a bit. It's just disgusting what happens on that railway.
Elliot, let me ask you.
I quite like the idea of the utility companies at least having a public option if the public wanted to have like a nationalised energy company that was at a competitive price, because I mean any profits would then go back into the public purse. Like I think these are good ideas. I just think Corbyn, he's got too many ideas that are on the extreme end. And so these sort of good ideas, honestly, we talk about where we're going to get the funding from for the police and stuff. It's like we could be doing this. We might need to be out of the EU. I'm not sure if you set one up, what the rules are, but either way, because of the character that he is, he's just not going to get enough people to support him. It was just never going to happen now.
Elliot, you said that you voted.
Can I give you...
One sec, Stephen. I'm just very, very curious. Elliot, you said that you voted to stay in the European Union at the referendum. Why? Have you changed your mind then?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
And you intimated that the reason for that was because you put democracy first. Is that correct, or is it more complicated than that?
For the reason that I've switched to Brexit, sorry.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Two things. First thing was that within about a month of us voting to leave the EU, I started to see the European Union in a different light, because they had started to say, well, we're not going to give you any sort of easy trade deal. And by the way, you've got to give us 40 billion euros before we even negotiate a deal with you. And I'm thinking, hold on. These are the people who I looked up to as these sort of paradigms of paragons of peace and cooperation in Europe. And it's like, you're actually only in it for your own self-interest. Not even just a bit. I could understand a bit of self-interest, but this is about subjugation. This is about ruining us as a country. And I thought, well, this is bad. And also the country did vote for this. It's not okay to go back against it now. It just isn't.
Thank you.
I think you'll find a lot of young people I think very much the same way. If you think that the Parliament that we are voting on tomorrow, if we stay in the EU, Parliament will become one thing only, and that is a council chamber. That's all it'll be. It'll be a council chamber of the EU. It's as simple as that. We'll lose our nation statehood. We will lose our right to self-determination. And that way, for me, just lies anarchy.
Elliot, do you mind my asking, please, how old you are?
I'm 24.
And
so
what is the sentiment amongst your peer group? What do your friends feel about this and about your changing attitude?
Well, my friends that I went to school with, they're the same age as me, but I've gone back to university now, so I'm around 18, 19-year-olds, that sort of age group. So I've got sort of two groups of friends, the people who are about my age, who are actually, surprisingly, most of my friends are pro-Brexit now. They're not all ardent Brexiteers like I am, but they all know we've got to leave and it's the right thing to do. But the ones that are at university, I don't even air my views very much at uni just because I know how unpopular it's going to make me. So one night a few months ago in the park with about 10 of the other students, I brought Brexit up for a joke, and then I went and told them all that I'm supporting Brexit and everything like that. And they all of them just stopped and looked at me like, what? How on earth are you as a young person supporting Brexit? Why? Look at all the things that the immigrants give us, and all this sort of rubbish. And I explained my points, and they were just gobsmacked. Couldn't understand it. So,
do you think that there is a slight change? I mean, for example, the other night there was that question time with an under-30s audience, and as I didn't watch it, I have to be honest, but as I understand it, there were there were a number of questions from youngsters in the audience that were basically saying that we should be honouring democracy. Is that a reflection on your peer group, or is that overblown?
Well, all I would say is this: with the young people, it's really quite strange. You've got a lot of people who sort of...
Hold on 1 second. Bubba, do me a favour, darling. Just mute your microphone just a second when you're not talking, because I can't hear Elliot here. But God bless you for calling in, Bubba. Please mute your microphone when you're not talking. Elliot, please.
Yeah, I'd say that the young people, it's very strange. So I think Sargon of Akkad made a video about this a while back, saying that the second or third most popular party in the 18 to 25-year-olds was UKIP at the time. It was about a year ago when he made the video. But UKIP aren't really that popular in general. We were quite plugged into the internet, and we were exposed to a lot of information here. So when we go to these channels like Milo or Paul Joseph Watson or Sargon or any Brexit channels, we can, if we wanted to find the truth, we can examine lots of points of view, and we're quite savvy with that in a lot of ways. And some people do seek it out. And then
are you suggesting that the media, the mainstream media, is not balanced enough? They seem to be representing your age group, or they say they are.
I almost never watch the TV. I haven't done it in almost 10 years. It's like something I've just known as just a lot of crap. I don't think young people generally watch TV either. I think that left-wing ideas just spread amongst younger people in general, either on social media or it's just something that's maybe naturally in us at this age to be a bit more left-leaning. So when we see something like the EU, a teacher or the media or anyone really would tell us it's all about peace and cooperation and freedom of movement, everyone can love each other and all the rest of it. It just fits that little niche in the people in our age group. So maybe we need to do a bit more thinking. Maybe we need to go out and read a bit more. I don't know. But I think that's what it is. I think people who do look into it actually get red pilled a lot quicker than people who are maybe 10, 20 years older than them. But again, you've got these people who don't really look into it like I didn't.
Ollie, I can't actually hear anybody.
I ended up voting Remain. I was asking the sorts of questions you needed to ask when I was in the referendum. I never really asked very much because the left-wing friends I had around me kept telling me that what I was doing was, almost bigoted just to ask questions.
Katie, bear with me, Katie, please. Elliot, last question to you, and then if you've got any other questions, please.
Okay.
Any idea who you'll be voting for tomorrow?
I have got, there are no Brexit Party or UKIP candidates in my area. I'm voting Conservative just because I want Brexit doing, and I really am not proud about it, by the way. I'm left-wing anyway, but there's no left-wing party that represents me, so I have to know that I did the right thing, so I'm voting Tory just on Brexit alone. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Elliot. And please do call in again. I do hope you do call in again, sir. Thank you. Bless you.
That's all right. I'll let you guys go. Thanks for having me on.
Just a minute, Elliot. Elliot. Ollie?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would love to have another programme talk with Elliot involved because we in UKIP have some very, very strong thoughts on how appallingly our young people are being tracked by both main political parties.
All right. I'll tell you what about 2 weeks from today, if we do that?
Yeah, we'll sort something out. If Elliot wants to come back on, that would be great. I would love to discuss with him, going back to when he was 7 years of age, how much pressure and how badly tracked our young people are, and they are a forgotten generation.
Elliot, do you can you contact me on Facebook, please? Maybe if you friend me on Facebook.
Has Jason got your...
Yes, he does. He does.
Get it from him.
All right.
Jason will hear this. But I'll message him now. Thanks for having me. I'll speak. What's your name from UKIP? Sorry, what's your name?
Stephen Place. Place.
Oh, cool. All right, Stephen. I'll speak to you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. That would be great.
All right, cool.
God bless you, Elliot.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Good evening to you. Now, we've got Katie Fanning here, Bubba Kate Paris, but apparently she can't hear anybody else. Can you hear me?
Hi, I don't know whether you can hear me now. It's saying that it's becoming unmuted. I can hear you, Ollie. I can't hear Elliot or anybody else on your radio show. So I'm getting one side of the conversation.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to hear what Elliot said. I did hear your side, which suggested that he was quite young. I didn't get to hear who he was voting for or what his issues were or the points he wanted to make. So I don't know whether you've got to fiddle about with some of the wires in there so I can hear both sides.
You know, that's a pain because both you and Stephen are on Skype. I really don't understand why you can't hear each other. I'll try and work something out with that.
Right.
Okay, look, let me just first of all then, seeing as you can hear me and other people can hear you, Stephen, can you hear Katie?
Okay.
No.
Oh. Okay. Look, tell me, folks, if you cannot hear Katie, and I'll keep an eye on the comments for that. Katie, what are you doing now? Because we've known you as having been kicked off UKIP's NEC because you were somewhat outspoken and told them what you thought of them. But now, as I understand it, you are campaigning for, is it just
And, you know, under a first past the post system, we've basically got a two-party system. It's either red or it's blue. And what Boris is offering is much better than what we'd get with Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, if we do not have a Conservative majority, we're looking at another hung parliament. We're looking at another 3 years of kicking the can down the road and squabbles in parliament and people trying to undermine our democracy. And I really can't be bothered with that. And I know that it's not everything that we want. And I know that you've spoken yourself about the UN Migration Pact. That's not been resolved, but that's a completely different issue to Brexit. I think when we're looking fundamentally...
It isn't. I mean, people voted because they were worried about migration as well. And then Theresa May goes and signs the UN Migration Compact autonomously with no commons debate at all, far less a mainstream media debate where, you know what, I mean, us, we get to decide, do we not, on what's going on in our community? Oh, no, none of that. She signs this thing autonomously, which is essentially encouraging mass migration and an end to borders. It's quite remarkable. And Boris Johnson isn't saying a word about that and has a migration policy, which is basically, pretty much a bit of a free-for-all, it seems to me. Same as the Labour Party and all the rest of it. The reason for that is because their hands are tied by this treaty that Theresa May signed autonomously, which was never reported by the mainstream media, despite our voting in that referendum saying, you know what, we're a bit concerned with unchecked, unscreened migration.
Of course, and I think it is an issue that should have been spoken about in this election, because we might be able to come out of any sort of free movement within the EU, but with this migration compact signed with the UN, obviously there is still going to be that free movement, and not just from Europe, but from around the world, and we'll have to accept a certain amount of people each year. Of course, it needs speaking about, but I don't know the process in which Theresa May went about signing this autonomously. It didn't seem that there was a debate in Parliament. It didn't even seem like she consulted her own party.
She didn't.
So I would like to know how a Prime Minister can go ahead and sign something on behalf of the nation without consulting them anyway. So maybe we have to have a look at whether that was completely legal or not, and whether we actually want to, as a nation, sign up to that. But do you think that a Jeremy Corbyn government is going to give you that option?
No, I don't. Right. Okay, look, before we carry on, I really, really, really want you and Stephen to be able to hear each other. Stephen, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes, yeah.
Okay, you can hear me, but you can't hear Kate.
I can't hear Kate.
Right. Let me just try. Let me try something here. I don't know if that makes any difference. What about now? Give us a sing song, Kate.
Hello? No, I'm not singing. I have a terrible singing
Nearly
voice.
Christmas carol.
No. Can you hear me,
You could do what Boris did with the cards. No, that's not singing. Right. Did you hear that, Stephen?
I didn't. Sorry, no, I didn't.
You didn't hear that either. Okay, that doesn't work. That button doesn't work. I don't know what to do about that. I really don't know what to do about that. I suppose we can just maybe muddle through. I'll tell you what. Kate, can I try calling you on Facebook, please? Because it might be that by doing that, I can't use your video tonight anyway, because I had problems with Skype video. The connection doesn't work in the streaming software. Guess what? Tonight. So I can't use your video anyway, which is a real pain, because it's always good to see, excuse me. And so what I'll do is I'll call you on Facebook.
Tonight, Ollie, because I had to literally rush in, and I've just thrown off my jacket and put up all the stuff that I need to keep the camera still and a light on my face, and literally just joined the chat because another task that I had to do kind of ran over. Anyway, I'll let you go, and I'll let you contact me via Facebook and see if we can all communicate clearly then.
I'll do that straight away, because I think that might work. Okay, she's gone. Thank goodness. Right. Okay. What a pain. Blimey. Okay, that's a good point that she had about the UN migration compact. But more broadly, in terms of this campaign, the fact is, Stephen, that we have just had, it seems to me, not the most lies of any political election campaign, but overtly more lies than ever before. Yeah,
it's just accepted now. We're desensitized, aren't we, to being lied to, and being let down, and it's just a big con, and all these people will be resuming their seats next week on £79.5 a year, all on 250 average £1,000 a year expenses, all employing their sons and daughters and mothers and brothers and sisters, and it'll be just business as normal. And we're like idiots because we just put up with it. This is why I'm in UKIP, and I'm staying with UKIP, because I genuinely believe that we need to fight this.
One sec, Kate. Kate, can you hear Stephen now?
I can. He's a little bit echoey, but otherwise I can hear him. Yeah.
All right. Cool. And what about vice versa, Stephen?
I can. Hi, Kate. Are you well?
I'm well, Stephen. I hope you are, and it's lovely to speak to you.
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Right.
I'm full of cold, but I'm very well.
Good. Just like the country, quite an analogy, full of cold. Okay. Right. So we were just considering, Katie Fanning, the duplicity that is being illustrated in this campaign. Certainly it has to be said, ironically, the Liberal Democrats are being more honest than anybody else, at least so far as Brexit is concerned. We know that they hate democracy, hate the British people, and will overturn everything to do with our great country. So at least they're being honest about it. And Joe Swinson, by the way, is within a smithereen of being kicked out by the SNP in somewhere up in Scotland or something. She is within 1% of being kicked out. And so please, please, please vote against Wallace. Get rid of Wallace and Gromit, and let's have, even if it is the SNP in that one seat, only that seat, that would be brilliant. Make my day. The duplicity is off the scale, is it not? Do you remember anything remotely like this, Katie Fanning, in terms of the overt lies?
No, I think we've entered a new age of deception. I think politics has always been deceiving. I think sometimes people make pledges they know damn well that they can't fulfill. However, with the help of the mainstream media and fake news, we're talking like kids being put on floor in hospitals, and that's under question whether that's correct. Each party is coming out with ridiculous lies. I mean, Labour must be getting really desperate with the whole "we're going to sell off the NHS." It seems their primary attack strategy of this year seems to be attacking the Tories about the NHS, when in fact it was Labour who expanded the PFI files and want to open the borders to health tourists and economic migrants that are going to abuse our good nature, and obviously all the free services like the NHS, putting further pressure on it, and obviously installing a lawful lot of middle management and pointless roles like diversity officers to implement their racist policies in hospitals on what, 35 to 40 grand a year. Now that's not a waste of NHS money, but they don't talk about that. They make up lies, and the mainstream media peddle those lies. And I saw an article actually pop up on my Facebook today. I haven't had much time to really be online, apart from early afternoon when I was eating, and there was an article that said, oh, Labour has not lied at all throughout this election. I can't remember, it might have been the Independent, but the Tories have lied 90-something% of the time. And I thought, you know what, if I ever got into power, I would actually implement a law that would make it illegal for independent papers or any papers, and even politicians, to the best of their knowledge, because I understand you can make pledges that you wish to fulfill, and because of circumstance you can't implement them, or, you know, like our traitorous Parliament over the last 3 years that have stopped any form of Brexit going through. I mean, it basically forced through a second referendum. That's what this general election is. It's a choice between, you know, Jeremy Corbyn not leaving at all and Joe Swinson not leaving at all, though Jeremy Corbyn has been quite good, like you say, in lying. Unlike the Liberal Democrats that have said, you know, we don't care about your democracy, we know what's better for you, and you've made the wrong decisions, so we're going to undo Brexit. Labour think exactly the same thing. They've just not said it quite as brazenly as Miss Wallace, as you call her. What's her name? Swinson. That's her.
Right.
But yeah,
okay.
I just think that
do we not have
an awful lot of lying on all sides.
Is there not actually a bigger problem?
Have been the most honest.
Newsnight last night, top story was exactly that question, actually, that I just asked to both of you, which was, you know, what's the deal with this lack of honesty in this campaign? But actually, the bigger problem, it seems to me, is not the dishonesty from the politicians. It's the dishonesty from the media that the fourth estate that we require to hold these politicians to account. If you don't have them holding the politician to account, then who's going to do it?
Exactly, but the problem is that many of these mainstream media have been bought out.
Katie, one sec. Stephen, please.
Sorry.
Journalism in this country's died because any good journalist worth their salt would have had so much on Jo Swinson, she wouldn't have been able to show her face. When you that her husband's company, which she's a director of, takes 3.4 million euros every year from the EU. She's anti-fracking, yet she took £14,000 in a donation from a fracking company. And suddenly the Lib Dems are now pushing the gender programme, and yet she's got a massive donation from a company that manufactures puberty blockers. So any good journalist worth his salt would have had Jo Swinson tied up in knots and hung out to dry in no time at all. And they're just not bothered.
Unbelievable.
Doesn't that say that there's a possibility that our media are receiving money from politicians to print stories and lies on their behalf, and that we should actually be looking into this as a form of political corruption?
I mean, when the attack in the last 24 hours, the attacks from all media, Channel 4, Sky, BBC especially, on Boris Johnson have been horrendous and so blatant. I mean, that interview that Beth Rigby did with the young lad's dad, you know, the young lad that was murdered on the bridge, his father, was just an absolute attack on Boris Johnson.
Yes.
And yet the truth of the matter is that in his own bumbling way, he actually said, you know, he felt very, very strongly for that young man. Obviously, he was very sad about it and sorry about it.
Yeah.
But he was right. The Labour Party introduced 50% tariffs. And he was a terrorist, and he was allowed out. They changed the law, did the Tories. They're not great on law and order in any way, shape or form, but they did change the law in 2012, and he didn't qualify, so therefore he was let out. But that, I mean, what on earth is this country doing, allowing terrorists out of prison? convicted terrorists.
Stephen.
The craze.
Stephen, it's your area of expertise, so I want to ask you something. There was an article that I read that Keir Starmer of the Labour Party, that front bencher, that he'd actually organised what they call a sweetheart deal for the London terrorist, meaning that he only had to plead guilty apparently to one terrorist charge rather than 30 odd that he was accused of.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons he got out early. Is this a common thing? I've never heard of a sweetheart deal. What is it?
There's all sort. We used to call it taking into consideration TICs, and so to get the crime rate up, the detection rate up, you would arrest somebody for say a burglary, and they'd admit committing a burglary. Then you would get a whole massive list of unsolved burglaries and ask them to take them into consideration. And so they did, so you could write those individual crimes off. So one person arrested for burglary could actually admit up to 70.
I want to say...
not get charged with 70, just get charged with one, is that correct?
And just get charged with one, but take into consideration a further 70 burglaries, which they never committed. And it's the same thing with this. If you are arrested for a terrorism offence, and you're charged with that offence, but they know you've committed another however many, they will say to you, look, we will go lenient on you. It's like the American system of doing a deal. But we've got everything's just so wrong. Did you know that 60% of rapes, it's only 60% of rapes that are actually looked at into any sort of detail? So 40% of rapes, i.e. the weaker cases, are not even properly investigated. They don't even do rape kits anymore now. It's they have a logarithm which decides whether they go to court or not. A logarithm.
Is even fewer.
Okay, let's take a few comments from see what people are saying. And want to say a big cheers to Elliot, by the way. Thank you very much for calling in. And Boris's deal isn't leaving the EU. It's swapping one treaty for another, says Manchester Colin. Elliot Clark, who was just on, saying, I'm enjoying listening at the moment. This is quite good. Anna, I imagine no one here will vote for Labour or the Lib Dems or not vote at all. Well, that's why. What's one of the reasons why it was personally lovely to hear from Elliot, because he was somebody who did vote for Remain. And even if he was still a Remainer, I would have liked still to have heard from him, whilst I might have grimaced when he mentioned the way he voted. The fact is that that's what we need to do. We need to have a dialogue, not just with people that we agree with, an echo chamber, but we need to get out of that and not just be singing to the choir. We need to be reaching out as broadly as we possibly can. If ever we've got a chance of reuniting the United Kingdom, Anna says, maybe my country is more democratic. Lots of laughs. No matter where I live, I can vote for whomever I want. Am I right? You can vote for whomever you want, whether or not they're going to do what they say they're going to do. I mean, this is really the biggest problem, is it not? Maybe, Kate, you can start us off with this. That we look at the last parliament. Hold on. Let me finish the question. The last parliament was, if you like, the last straw in terms of people's belief in democracy for many of us in the UK, and has left many of us, including me, by the way, thinking what we need to do is to get a bit French and to have a peaceful rebellion, a general strike, and that's the only way we're actually going to get our country back.
I agree with that part, Ollie. I would like to see what a Conservative majority do. I mean, there are rumours that if a Conservative majority does get in, that we might repeal the Benn Act and leave with no deal if Europe don't want to play ball, because that was Boris's plan in the first place.
You think they? Okay. Let's go down there. Let's go down there. Let me pull you up on that then, because maybe that's more relevant to the topic tonight anyway. Is that going to happen, or is that not just hopeful?
I think it's hopeful, but I think that there are many people in the Conservative Party that may get into power that are very hopeful that that's the road that they will go down. I mean, I think that particular idea that I'd heard from had come from Esther McVey in an article. And there are many people speaking on the campaign trail about possibly a no deal, even though most people do support Boris's deal and they think it's a good deal. Me coming from UKIP, I've always been a no deal kind of girl.
His deal.
I don't like the
deal.
fact that it doesn't clear up what's going to happen with our military, with our security services. I don't like the fact that it appears to sell off our fisheries still. It
basically places our country in the hands of the EU via the ECJ. What is good about that in any way, shape, or form?
It's better than not having a deal whatsoever. Sorry, not leaving whatsoever. Not having a deal would be great, but
we're not leaving
whatsoever would be
we're not leaving.
Nightmare. And
all we're doing is giving up our veto.
Statement that your caller in just said, saying, "Oh, it's great, it's democracy. I can vote for anybody, everywhere." It's not true. I mean, you might have a variety of smaller parties, but under first past the post, they are not going to be able to have any power, even if they're telling you the truth. They're not going to have any power to implement what they're promising you. So your vote is basically wasted. Do I believe that we are a democratic nation? No, I don't believe that our systems are fit for purpose in a modern democracy. They're not proportional. A first past the post system does not make it democratic when it gives us a choice of red or blue. And basically it's a second referendum. It's basically we undo Brexit or we go for this deal. And this deal is basically 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or nothing at all. And that's the way that I agree. So it isn't democratic.
I completely agree with
I disagree when people say that they've got a variety of people to vote
the battle we have to fight right now in the war.
Whoa, hold on, one at a time. Sorry. Wrap up, Kate, please.
Sorry, but yeah, I feel that we are being pulled into a second referendum and it's not democratic, and that we literally have 2 choices, and that's either Boris or Corbyn. And for me, Diane Abbott as Home Secretary and Corbyn as Prime Minister.
That's a different issue. That's a different issue, and very, very arguably, very debatably, it could be a bigger issue than whether or not we should be concerned about Boris's deal. But that is a different. Okay, Stephen, you were. I think you were agreeing actually with what Katie said.
Yeah, I do agree with everything that Kate said. The next 48 hours, we have a battle. That battle is to keep out of number 10 a Marxist, far-left, lunatic government headed by Jeremy Corbyn. That's what we've got to keep out. That's the immediate battle this country's faced with. After that, if Boris is returned to power with a majority, he will then decide and put in front of Parliament with his majority a deal or a new treaty. Then we have another battle on Ollie. There's absolutely no doubt about it. If it's Brino, in other words, Brexit in name only, it doesn't take us out, we're still vassalaged, we're still paying billions of pounds, we've got a major battle. Without a doubt.
And we will have no veto.
He won't get away with that. But the immediate danger is
he won't get away with it. How will he not get away with it? Because this is the thing that many of us are wondering about. How can we avoid Brino? Because that treaty delivers. I don't care what either of you say. The fact is that treaty, I've read it. It delivers Brino. It delivers us to the clutches of the ECJ. Javid, or whatever his name is, bless him. He went on the Today program about a week ago, and he admitted, he said that will lead us to a trade deal, which he reckoned was already set in stone, already in place, already ready to go. Not just the deal, not just Boris's deal, but a trade deal off the back of it, he reckoned was ready to go. But subsequently to that, it has been admitted by various think tanks that the only way for there to be that deal is for there to be a ECJ oversight, i.e. EU vassalage. We cannot carve out our own trade deals with the likes of Trump. Trump has said it. He said that deal will not lead us to being able to negotiate a trade deal easily at all. Therefore, if that's the case with the United States, that will be the case with the Commonwealth countries, that will be the case with Japan, with everywhere. We are basically the only difference with the direction that we're taking with this deal is that we will lose our veto.
In the meantime, just to say something that you were discussing there, Katie, with regards to the military, our military, we will, under the terms of the Lisbon Treaty, be seeing them being absorbed over the course of the next 5 years. Guess what? The same length of time as this government that we're about to, under the Fixed Term Act, that we're about to vote in, we could see in that time our military entirely subsumed by Brussels. There's some huge concerns here. So this is the key. This is the key. This is my final question to both of you. Is it? Whoa, Katie, you can go first. But this is my final question to both of you, please, this evening. Is there a chance, if people are going to vote Tory, which they are because they're desperate, are they going to be able to? What do they need to do to ensure that it doesn't lead to that deal, or that if it does, that after a year from now, we do not have another extension, but we leave on a WTO terms Brexit and save our skin?
Well, ideally, at the end of this election, if we want to be given, if we want the people of this country to have as much leverage to enforce a deal that is more preferable to what we would like, then, it might be a good idea that we get a Conservative majority. But statistically speaking, the Brexit Party do reasonably well as a means of leverage, of holding the Conservative Party's feet to the fire. That might be a way, but obviously there is no way of influencing that. And I don't want to risk people taking Conservative votes to allow Jeremy Corbyn in power, because, as we've discussed, that would be absolutely terrible. However, if there is a situation where a Conservative majority did get in and we went ahead with this deal, I would hope that if our military was to be absorbed, that they would remember who they swear their allegiance to, and actually decide to revolt in that circumstance and refuse to be absorbed. However, our military
they'll do as they're told.
Anyway.
They will do as they're told, ultimately, if they want their pension and all the rest of it. I mean,
people do as they're told, Ollie. That's why we're in this situation in the first place, because we're playing by ridiculous rules, which are being imposed on us by sociopaths with very good psychological manipulative tools, put it that way, which means that you're all abiding by these ridiculous rules, which means you've basically just handed them all power and control. But to go into that discussion will probably be quite long.
Stephen, please. Yes, indeed, quite right. I agree with you entirely about the psychos running the planet. Stephen, would you please tell us, how do we prevent this deal leading us to not only Brino, but far worse than Brino, a surrender treaty that essentially gives us nothing but vassalage?
Right. You may think I'm going to sound like a fantasist. You may think I'm going to sound quite naive, but I firmly believe there will be a rise of a centre-right populist party in this country that will engage people and will talk to people and talk common sense and reasonable policy ideas, and I think the people will get behind that party, and I think we'll take the government to task. The other way, if that doesn't happen, the anger, which is palpable throughout the country, will manifest itself in a different form, which I hope not, but I think it will come, and I think that will be some serious civil unrest, especially if they say we're going to have to extend again and all, and especially when people are lying on the floors in hospitals, swimming pools are being shut down, kids can't get decent schooling. I think people will eventually say, do you know what, enough's enough.
You know what? Enough's enough! I want to say a big cheers to my special guests tonight, Stephen Place and Katie Fanning.
Pleasure.
God bless you two. And God bless all of you lot. Thank you, Elliot. Young man. Half my age. My God, I'm an old bastard. I'll tell you what, though. Old Stephen, it's a shame I couldn't get him on camera tonight because he's grown a beard and he looks just like Gary Bushell.
Don't say that.
Fortunately, more lucky, Bubba Kate Paris does not look like Gary Bushell. I think it's East Dumfriesshire, something like that. Go and vote out that Swinson woman, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
That's the
Wouldn't that
one
be
seat.
wonderful? Hey,
Please,
I'll tell you who else is
SNP.
looking a bit dicky, you know.
I'll tell you, there's a few of them. I put out a post earlier. It's hilarious. Hold on a sec. Let's see.
Do you know who they're really worried about? Genuinely.
Well, they're worried about Dominic Raab, actually.
But they're also worried about Boris.
No, his polling's looking good.
They are
No?
worried about Boris.
I'll tell you who's toast. Anna Soubry. She
Fantastic.
is toast.
Chuka Amuna.
He's gone.
So-
He's gone. Yeah, guaranteed. David Gork, he's a goner as well as a gonad.
Yeah. Dominic Cummings.
Yep.
Not Dominic
No,
Cummings.
Dominic Grieve.
what's his
Dominic
name?
Grieve in Beaconsfield. You're buggered, mate. So are you, Sarah
Yeah,
Wollaston.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Oh, I'll tell you what. Oh, yeah. Special coverage tomorrow. WakeUpUK.net. And I don't know whether it's going to be on YouTube somewhere as well. Probably. Check out my Facebook page. I'll put out, and also I'm going to try and get some interviews with the veterans protest in London tomorrow as well. I'll be doing that at youtube.com/Daily Brexit. That's not tomorrow, is it? That's Friday.
Saturday.
Well, they start on Friday, but they might be camping out. I don't know. Anyway, look, go vote. I don't know. I'm just for crying out loud. I don't know who to vote for, but vote against these damned morons, yeah? Go on, Kate. Last word. She's right. God bless you. Ciao, ciao. Nighty night. Here's to us. Bug up.
Goodbye. Good night.